wrong music. Hold on, man. That's the wrong music. Hold on a second. That's the wrong thing. Oh, man. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's the Crockett Show in social media history. I want to welcome you to another episode of the War Zone. Got half of the band back together tonight. My girl Demetria K finna pop in, and you know who I am. I'm the 5-star general. These kids out here committing murders, armed robberies, and some people think that their parents should be held accountable. Well, tonight we gonna talk about it. Let's get to it, man. Say, man, I want to welcome you to another episode of the War Zone and tell you thank you for taking the time out to tune in, because you know without you dudes and you dudettes, I would not have a show, and I really appreciate you taking time out to come and hang out with the OG and my good friend Demetria K tonight. She back in the building. What's going on, D?
Everything. How you doing?
Man, I'm blessed. That's all I can say. I'm blessed, and I'm still out here fighting for my people. So that's the main thing. I think this is a hot topic, and I don't even want to waste no time. What I'm gonna do is I want you to open it up, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find this video.
Okay.
And then I'll be right back.
All righty. So I can't see who's out there because I'm on my phone. My computer will not hook up to my internet and all that. So I have to actually like make a makeshift studio here with my phone in my living room. And so I apologize for that. But as you guys may or may not know, Gary put up a video a couple of days ago that showed, as I think it was like 4 boys or men, not really sure how old they were, but some of them looked like they were very young. They, for lack of better words, carjacked a guy as he was pumping gas. And Gary, you'll have to tell us where exactly that was. I'm still getting kind of familiar with Houston here.
That happened around Liberty County, around Dayton. That's like on the old Beaumont Highway, Highway 90, like you going to Beaumont the old way, not I-10.
Okay. So going toward Louisiana.
Yep.
Okay. So Gary is going to put that video up, and it's very disturbing. And so on Gary's post when he originally put the video up, it garnered a lot of conversation, and people had differing opinions as to who was at fault, this, that, the other. I am one of those people who feel like, especially if they are minors, that the parents should do the time with them for a whole host of reasons we'll get into. But we are going to wait for Gary to get the video up, and then you guys can get a little bit more information as to why we are forming these opinions. So let me see. Let me go to the chat. I don't see anybody in the way. Oops, that was a private chat. And I see Jamie. How are you doing? And if y'all could share this live so that a lot of everybody else can join in on the conversation. It is going to be an interesting hour. And so if y'all could do that and say hello in the chat so we know that you are there.
You ready?
Ready.
Here we go. Oh, shoot.
I
I
mean,
just drove down that. I drove down that stretch yesterday. I saw that gas station, and I needed gas. Honestly, I did, and I didn't stop because honestly, I had that tool on the front seat. I ain't got time to be looking for it if something happened. And then when I get out the car to pump gas, the tool is on me. But I think the biggest thing is what I can't allow people to do, and they've been doing it all day. You got to understand the mental health side of this. Mental health. I mean, whoever don't get it, it is what it is. I think that we have a lack of parenting because the one that ran in front of the car, he looked like somebody's baby. He looked like somebody's baby. So now the question is should the parents, to some level, be responsible for their kids' actions? And I'm one of the ones that believe that they should. That if that child gets that charge or whatever, the parent should incur a charge. I know in New Orleans, Louisiana, they've changed a couple of laws. And that's exactly what they do in New Orleans. If that's your child and they get convicted, then that parent's gonna get a charge also. And I think we gotta have a starting point to stop this. And I think if the parents have to incur, lawyer fees, have to possibly go to jail because of the action of their children, I think it may lead to better parenting in the household because that's where it starts at.
yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And as I said on your comment thread, a lot of people did not agree with that. Some people had the opinion of, well, you could be the best parent in the world, but that doesn't mean that your children won't go out there and act up. So, of course, we're not dealing in absolutes here. Yeah, there's a chance that you could be Mary Poppins and James Evans or whatever, and still have kids that do things that you have not raised them to do. But in a lot of these situations, come on, like Gary said, the little boy who ran in front of the car, he didn't look like he was even, I don't know, 13 or so. He was a young guy. So, and if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it nighttime that this was going on?
No, that was daytime. That
It
was
was
broad
daytime.
daylight.
Well, even still with it being daytime, I
That
mean,
was in broad daylight.
why don't you know where your children are?
Yeah.
Because when I was coming up, and Gary, I'm sure you have the same story. I was accounted for all the time. We had to do things like check in, like we could go hang out with our friends, but we couldn't just be gone all day long. We had to come back home and say, hey, here I am, instead of just being gone from morning all the way until nighttime. We had check-in points because, we didn't have cell phones or any of that kind of stuff, really. So you had to come home and touch home base per se. So, I mean, like I said, I know a lot of people really disagree with parents being held accountable, but I mean, they're your responsibility. Why don't you know where your children are?
Well, Dazzling Pinky says, depends on the upbringing to me. It's not always the parent. Either is it fair to blame them when the authority has been taken from the parents for years. The state of Texas did not sleep with my baby mama. Therefore, the state of Texas will not tell me how to raise my child. And y'all that have gotten afraid to raise your children because they're going to call CPS, you call who you want. The bottom line is, it's your responsibility. Yes, they bear the weight of the responsibility because you should know where your children are at all times. You should know. But see, we've gotten to be punk parents. I ain't going to put what I want to put on it, but punk parents. We're using the loopholes of CPS. We're using the loopholes of the state of Texas. And I think you done heard me say this before. I knocked my nephew out of my front yard for disrespecting me and didn't care if I went to jail. So the bottom line is no, you don't lose your authority to deal with your children. You just stop doing it. Our parents, look, man, can somebody bring back the Hot Wheel tracks? You couldn't do nothing like that and somebody identify you and you go home to your father, Demetra. You couldn't do something like that and go home to my mama. Oh no, that's not, because my mama taking me straight to the jailhouse.
Absolutely. Can you put up Aaron's comment? And how y'all how you doing, Aaron? But before I address his comment, disciplining your children does not always mean that you are brutal and violent to them. It really can be something as simple as setting expectations, right? And you do that from the cradle. You don't wait until they get around certain influences or they get off into junior high or whatever and then decide to discipline them. You discipline them from as young as you can, right? And that's, like I said, setting expectations, boundaries, and things like that. We have to learn to parent with our mind. And so, you know, when I hear somebody says, oh, well, the law won't let you discipline your child, it's like, well, what kind of discipline are you talking about? Yeah, you talking about, you know, brutalizing the kids. Yeah, you probably gonna get in trouble for that. But, you know, I heard from a sheriff one time, not for my situation, but he says, you know, we don't have a problem with you lightly disciplining your child, you know, like a tap or something like that. Because if you deal with them, then we don't have to deal with them. But of course, they don't want you, you know, brutalizing them and punching them in the face and all that other stuff, right? So you got to really start parenting your children from as young as possible. But I want to address Aaron's comment. I actually covered a story about that on my channel yesterday. Damia Mitchell, she was 17 at the time, where she went with 4 other girls. This was in Georgia. 4 other girls to her ex-girlfriend's house on Valentine's Day last year and shot up the place and ended up killing her ex-girlfriend's new girlfriend. And so eventually she turned herself in and all of that. Now her crimies, the 4 other ladies, they took a plea deal and got 10 years. And so they said they'll probably do about 2 to 4 years. But Damia wanted to ride it out and go, you know, to a jury trial, said she, you know, wasn't guilty. Well, of course, the jury found her guilty and the judge gave her 140 years for manslaughter. Now, so her parents are saying, and I said in the comment, that she didn't commit the crime, but there's people, and I don't know if she did or not, but there's people, and probably including her crimies, that said that she was the one that pulled the trigger. And not only did she pull it once, she pulled it a couple of times. And then Faith Burns is the 20-year-old that she killed. So 140 years is a lot for a 17-year-old, 18-year-old now. But, you know, what is your daughter running around with a bunch of girls with a gun? Somebody had the gun, right? If it wasn't her, somebody in that pack of 5 girls had a gun. So what were they doing running around shooting up somebody's house at 17 years old, right?
I haven't followed that story,
But
I will say this, that the reason that a lot of people don't, oh, okay, I'm going to go look it up. The reason that people don't understand the judicial system is, one, if you decide to take a case to the box, to the jury, in order to try that case, I don't care what that case is, that case, they're going to throw the book at you. They are going to throw the book at you, especially if you know you're in a situation where your people done rolled over on you. Everybody, it's 4 or 5 of them, everybody lying to cover themselves. Man, you take the best deal you can and get the hell out that room, man. That's what you do.
Yes, it you kind of froze up a little bit there, so I don't know if he's still talking. But yeah, she decided to
do exactly what it did. Now I'm gonna be honest with you. In Houston, I'm gonna still say you knew. Give you a couple more months, you ain't new no more around here, Demetra. With some of these crimes that these kids are committing, throw the damn book at them. I want to talk to you Christians for a second. You a Christian. So I ain't telling you to pull an anime Bullock if you have to discipline your child, but I am telling you to beat the devil out of them. I am telling you to whoop their ass. But see, if you stop trying to raise your kids when they become 14 and 15 years old. Raise your children from the days that they are in the Pampers. Show them the right way. Yeah, you might lose one. You know, if you got three, one of them might end up being an outlaw. But if you raise these kids the right way, a lot of kids right now are just too afraid to get involved in certain things. And they'll probably turn out okay. But we've abandoned basic parenting. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I mean,
we got the drink in front of them. Some of these women running men in and out the house on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like, I really kind of think about it. And I'm like, is parenting different than it was when we were coming up? And yeah, probably. I think with parenting or even with children, they have way more devices.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, they have more, devices and outlets, via social media and a whole lot of other stuff that has, I think, plays a bigger role in the influences on the children. But I mean, there could be an argument made that me.
But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? The one thing. You know what? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you know the one thing they got too much of nowadays? You didn't have it. Donovan didn't have it. I didn't have it. They got too many opinions. Oh, I can't. Well, my child has a right to think the way that they want. When you get old enough to pay some bills, you get some say-so in this house. But until you can do that, you're gonna do what I tell you to do. These kids got too much of an opinion. And they feel entitled.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, raising my daughter and my three nieces and nephews, I didn't have a problem with them having an opinion because I feel like, at one point in time in life, they were going to go out and.
Can you hear me?
Huh? Oh.
Let's make sure because she's having some connection.
Is it me? Am I having connection issues? Can y'all see me all right? Is it me or is it Gary? I'm looking at the chat. Can y'all see who's having it? Y'all can see me? Oh, it's just me. Oh my God. So yeah, I mean, until Gary gets back, I think it's him that's having an internet issue. And I mean, I don't mind it. For me personally, I didn't mind that my kids had an opinion because I think kids should have an opinion. I don't really necessarily agree with it's my way or the highway because however will they think for themselves if we don't teach them to have some sort of an opinion where they can discuss things and eventually become critical thinkers. But I do think that children may be a little bit entitled, and I don't blame the children. I blame the parents that the children are entitled. Entitled meaning that they should be able to do one thing or the other, or, whatever the case is. But that's our fault as parents that we have raised these kids that way. And I remember someone said that the first generation of millionaires rarely raise a second one because they rob their children of the struggle, right? Like the first generation millionaire, it took them some like blood, sweat, tears, and all of that to get to the money. And so when they have children, they're like, oh, I don't want them to struggle and suffer and do the things that I had to do. And so they just give them everything. And that's where the entitlement comes from. And so eventually they'll have kids and then they'll raise their children that way. So again, I don't mind children having an opinion, but I do mind when, after your opinion is said, when I said what I said, You know, I trump everything that goes on after I've listened to you. We can't come to some sort of agreement. You're gonna do what I say do.
But the question is should the parents, like in that case that in the video we saw, I think the parents should be held accountable. I really feel that the parents should be held accountable. I mean, it's gotten to a point where, you know, these kids are doing some of the most heinous things that is it unimaginable to me. You know, and I'm all for kids. I'm all for helping kids. I'm all for mentoring kids. You see what I'm saying? But when you do something like that, I could see if you were in a big fight and something happened and, you know, it was what it was. But to blatantly do something like what we saw on that video, no, everybody says it starts at home. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna step on a few toes tonight. A lot of the people that were making the comments, they are helping create this problem. They are helping create a problem where there's no accountability. And these kids think they are above the law and they can get away with all this stuff that they're doing.
Sorry about that. Somebody was calling. Does anybody know if I can put this on Do Not Disturb and still be on live? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't never do it, so I don't know.
Okay, sorry about that.
But I think that one, there has to be more accountability. I hear some black people saying we need to go back and get harsher penalties, you know, worse than the 94 crime bill. And I told them, I said, well, that's not going to happen because the progressives ain't going to let that happen. So if there's no accountability for what they do, you're creating these monsters. You're empowering their behavior. I mean, goddamn, we used to just steal out the stove. But murder is a common thing nowadays. And in Houston, you know, they say the crime rate is going down, but in Houston, it's 4 or 5 murders a day. Wow. And most of them are being committed by school-age kids.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, when we were coming up, we would hear about horrible things, but it wasn't all the time. It was like, oh my God, did you hear, you know, such and such did this, that, and the other. But now it's just all over the place. You can be scrolling on social media, watching the news or whatever, and you can see this as an everyday, all the time occurrence with these young children. And so it's going to take parents to go back to being involved. And I always say this, I hate this tablet generation, not the kids, but the fact that these parents now put these children, these tablets in front of these children or these phones, and that's the parent now. The tablet is the new parent, and the parent is off, you know, probably on their tablet or their telephone or whatever the case is. And so it's like, again, you know, just to draw a comparison, when we were growing up, we had real parents there, right? Like when you came home, I came home, had a mom or your dad or whatever, they was there. They had a conversation with you. Okay, take your school clothes off, sit yourself down at the table, do your homework. We're going to eat together as a family. Now, even the babies, you know, as I guess as soon as they could sit up, they're watching the tablet. And so it's like, well, who's really raising the kids? And I always ask this question, are people who allow their children to be on these phones all the time? I always ask them, would you allow your children or your son or daughter to go meet with a strange man in the middle of the night in the dark alley? And they're like, well, of course not. I said, well, you're low-key kind of doing that, sans the alley, because they're on the phone or the tablet. You don't know what they're watching, you don't know who they're talking to or any of that kind of stuff, or who is influencing your child, right? So the only thing that person on the other end of that phone, whatever it is they're watching, can't do is touch your child unless they lure them or something. So the point that I'm making is a lot of times parents don't even know what their children are watching. And so when you see a little boy involved in a carjacking, it's like, why is he so desensitized to the point to where it's like, y'all want to go do a carjacking? Sure, let's go. Like when we were coming up, we'd be like, what? Nah, because for one thing, I'm gonna get my ass whooped at home, not even really thinking about the police, but just what would go on at the house if we got in trouble for doing anything like that, right? So that never even really crossed our minds. But today, these kids, they game for anything.
Well, one, I would never think about doing it for a lot of reasons. But the main reason is my mama told me, you go to jail, you're going to stay there. I'm not coming to get you. I had the type of mom, if you got caught stealing, she going to take you back to the store. She going to whoop your behind all the way back to that store, in that store, and all the way back home. See, the problem is, and we've said this a bunch of times. I've heard you say it. Biggest mistake we make, we want to be our kids' friend. We want to be their friend. I don't want to be my kid's friend. I tell them all the time, I'm not your friend. I'm your father. And it's a big difference. And I'm not playing the game. So, the lack of discipline in the household, and then the lack of structure, discipline, and accountability in the school system, where they spend 75% of their day and can slap the hell out of a teacher, go to the main office, and come back to class, just empowers the behavior. But when you commit that crime, then I think that you're going to deal with the law. And if the parent, you got these kids out here shooting up these schools and they're able to have access to these guns, that's a parental issue. And see, a lot of people are saying, well, no, you shouldn't do that. That's because you're doing that same shit at your house. You're doing that same thing at your house. And these kids are not falling out of the sky. These are these people's kids. People sitting here watching us tonight got some of those same kids in their households. They have tablet kids, like you said. You have parents that are not checking these phones, that are not going through social media. You see what I'm saying? And they sitting here watching us tonight, and they ain't gonna admit it. The one parent that I feel so bad for is some of y'all sitting here tonight, your kid be kicking your ass. Your kid be putting his hands on you. Your daughter be putting her hands on you. I wish he would. I promise you. You know what they used to say? I brought you in this world, I'm going to take you out. Mine put their hands on me, say, bro, I hope you got them burial. I got that burial thing over here, but I'm not putting up with it. And see, that's why when I coached, when I dealt with kids in any, I made my parents aware, I am not you. I'm not going to deal with your child the way that you do. So please talk to your child at home. And I'm going to be honest, when I coached in Little League, I had the worst of the worst kids. But I will say this, 12 years of doing it, not one kid disrespected me. Not one. And these are the kids that nobody wanted. But I would take them. You see what I'm saying? But I would take them out of town. They had to wear shirts and ties. They didn't like it, slacks. I'm getting you ready for the next level. I had NFL players sending me their children. It is what it is. So if a coach can do this, why you can't do it at home? Why you can't instill discipline in your child and respect in your child at home? See, I couldn't, D, I'm gonna be honest with you. Could you see me as a teacher?
Which Gary, the one that be cussing, drinking beers?
That probably wouldn't go very well. That probably wouldn't go very well. Little Johnny, please sit down, little Johnny. Fuck you, Mr. Monroe. No, you better sit your little funk ass down somewhere before you get hurt in here. You better sit down, man. See, respect is earned, it's not given. And these kids don't respect nobody no more, some of them. Now, for every bad one we got a good one. And some kids are very, very enjoyable to be around every single day. But some of these kids, they need tough love, man.
And when I hear people say, well, I don't think the parents should be have to do the time and stuff. But just think about that man that was at the gas station, pumping his gas, minding his business, whatever he was doing in his mind. And 4 little kids come up and do that. Not only did they commandeer his vehicle, they was beating him down to the ground, right? The man eventually runs off. But it's like, why should he have to bear the brunt of, to me, I don't care what nobody say, bad parenting? Why does he get to hold the L for people, and this is going to sound really harsh, but releasing their demons, because that's what it is, releasing their demons onto society? Like you said, Gary, you pumping your gas, you ain't doing it without your peace. And there's a lot of people. I saw a picture of a sister, it was a while back, she at the gas pump like this with her piece in the air. Like, I wish somebody would. And it's like, and that's not even really specific to certain areas. You could be anywhere, because, no shade to anybody, but that man was a white man. I don't know if he went to the hood per se to pump gas. I don't know anything about that area. But what I'm saying is, you could be anywhere, but we are now at a state where people feel like they have to have their piece on them just to get out and pump gas. Like, I'm thinking, when I get out the car, let me get my piece, because while I'm pumping gas, somebody might try to run up on me, right? Like, we didn't think that way a couple of years ago, but we're thinking that way now. So the question I have is, who should be responsible for your child doing that to somebody? Who should, if it's not you, the person that bore that child, and they live in your home, who should be responsible for them doing that other than themselves, especially if they're minors?
If your kid don't go to school, who's responsible for it? The parent. If your kid don't go to school, the parent ends up in a courtroom. If your kid goes out there and kills somebody, you should bear some of that responsibility. And if that ain't what you want, then raise your damn children the right way. I'm being honest. Man, I'm not trying to, like me, I'm standing at the gas pump. I'm looking around me the whole time. First of all, when I go to get gas, I circle the pumps. I'm going to get to the pump that's directly in front of the door. When I get out, I'm going in, pay for my gas. I'm looking as I'm going. I'm looking behind me. When I come out the store, I'm looking at everything. So as I'm walking to the car, I done pull that thing out. Because I promise you, I'm going to be judged by 12, not carried by 6. It's not going to happen. And if your child try to jack me, he going to jack up on a murder. That's what's going to happen. And if you don't want your kid dead, then you might tell him, say, that little fat dude, if you see him somewhere, don't do that. Don't even try to do that. But they're blaming it on mental health. So you telling me we got a mental health issue with these kids that's jacking people at gas stations. So they sit around together, they formulate a plan, they figure out exactly how they're going to do it, they get the artillery they need, and now we got a mental health issue? No.
Right. Like you
Something
said,
like that, regardless, if they'd have killed that man, white or black, for that type of crime, the way that it was done, if you're in Texas, you get the death penalty, give them the death penalty. Stop playing with them.
Yeah. And like you said, they want to blame everything on mental health, which, I do believe people, suffer from some sort of mental illness, if you will. But it's like you said, y'all smart enough to sit around and figure out who gonna do what and what, and how to take the man's car and all that. And then, like, what did you go do with the car? Did you joyride? Was you gonna take it to be picked for parts? So you had the mental capacity to try to at least go that far. And so that can't really be the defense for everything, especially when people are cognizant of what they're doing. But like you said, then if you take somebody's, baby up out of here, because that's what they gonna say, oh, my baby, oh, you didn't have to do that to my baby. And I told y'all this story once before. My father, and lives in LA. And, out there, for whatever reason, they raise pigeons or something. I don't know. So he had some pigeons, and a teenager came on his porch and got one of the pigeons and killed up one of his pigeons. So he went to his family's house and said, hey, your son killed my bird. And the dad was like, get the F off my porch, this, that, the other. And so my dad was like, all right, cool. So he said he just happened to be at the gas station pumping some gas, and he saw the same boy snatch some money out of somebody's hand. They was gonna go pay for their gas. And so my dad, got the boy, and the police came and all of that. So then his parents came to my dad's house and said, oh, you didn't have to do all of that. You could have came to us. He says, y'all remember when I came to y'all? Told you he killed my bird? What did you tell me? Told me to get the F off your porch. He says, no, I'm telling you to get the F off my porch. Not a white man got him. Because when I tried to come to you, say discipline your boy, y'all was, had all that to say to me. But now that the white man got him, it's like, I should not have done that, right? But, perhaps my father saved him from killing somebody, or, worse, getting killed himself.
I put up Benny Winfield's comment. How about the parents that don't know how to raise kids?
Uh-oh.
And I'm glad you put an S on kids. Because if you don't know how to raise a kid, stop fucking. I'm just being blunt. Stop having all these goddamn kids that you don't know how to raise. And that's all. Look, man, go through the projects. They got 5, 6 kids. The mama pussy popping in the club on a Friday night. 2, 3 dudes done ran through there the whole weekend. And we can't blame this on the system. There are a lot of single moms that have raised boys that have turned out great. You feel what I'm saying? You know what parent to play with if you got 2 of them. But then if you got one that's strong, you know what it is, man. Just bottom line, Bennett, a lot of these parents is some punk ass parents, and we don't want to admit it.
And yeah, I mean, Gary, I'll double down on that. I mean, how about the parents that don't know how to raise kids? But it's like, this is where I think, and I sucked at biology, like terrible. I don't even know how I passed the class. But one thing that I do know is that when you stick something into something, having sex, the main idea of that is procreation. That being said, if you are lying down with somebody unprotected and you haven't the slightest idea how to be a parent, then you might want to abstain or make sure you don't, bring a child into this world. But I tell you what, one of the hardest jobs on the planet is being a parent. And, people can write books and say, oh, this is how you're the perfect parent. But it is an on-the-job training. But you always have to be learning. But the last thing you do is bring life into this world and just let it go do what it do. And then when somebody wants to hold you responsible, it's the same thing. Like if your child goes out there and damages somebody's property, they're going to say, okay, he's a minor. Mom and dad, you need to pay for that. So why do we have a different attitude when your child goes out there and exacts harm on somebody? It's like, well, I shouldn't be responsible for that. I think you should be responsible for that. I mean, and my other question is, are y'all that cowardly that you allow your child to go do that bid by him or herself, even though you're the parent and for whatever reason you dropped the ball?
Let me put this up. The Damien Nor Pink. Plenty of people had children young, clueless. Some people think parenting is just giving them what they never had. And I totally agree with you that we start accepting teen pregnancy the way we've started accepting LGBTQ values. See, we go through phases. And that's what I feel. It was cute when your child was 12, 13 years old, walking around with a big old stomach bigger than mine. It was cute. But see, what you didn't realize is when that child gets old enough to walk, that child that gave birth is going to revert back to being a child from the point that she stopped. They're going to revert back. So one, if they're 12, 13 years old, they should have never had a child. Two, if they're 12 or 13 years old, whose house was they fucking in? 9 times out of 10, it was yours. And you knew what was going on. Y'all know. Look, I don't want a son of mine to grow up and do the things that I did. And some of you women, you raising these girls, you know what you had to do. You shouldn't want that for your child. You should be raising your child and preparing them for the next level, whether that's going to college, getting a trade, whatever, preparing them for life. But we don't do that anymore. We're afraid to have those conversations with our children. We're afraid to discipline physically our children because these people are going to come in here and do what they do. Well, bring your handcuffs to my house because you could be my friend. You could be my family. I honestly call my house ass whooping central. You bring your kid over here and they do something fucked up, I'm whooping their ass. I'm telling you now. You don't want it done? Don't bring them around me because I'm not putting up with it. That means I don't care what age they are. I don't care. I know how to handle them at any age. Remember one of mine got bucked one day and I went up them stairs. What you said? By the time I slid her all the way down them 2 levels of stairs. Slid her down them stairs. When she got to the bottom, you want to have this conversation again? Because you ain't going to talk to me like you talk to your little friends. Don't bring that attitude in here. I'm going to treat you with respect. You're going to treat me with respect. And that's the way it's been with mine from day one.
That's the way it's got to be. I mean, you set expectations from day one. And I think that's part of the problem. And I think it was Benny. And how you doing, Benny? You say it's not one size fits all. And I totally agree with you on that. But I think, there are some basics to raising children. Set expectations. That's what my mom used to always say. Set expectations and be present in the lives of your children. I mean, I saw somebody else put up a comment said nowadays children are accessories. And I agree with that too. You dress it, you put more time, and I'm just saying you in general, put more time into dressing the kid up, making sure the hair is nice, they got the latest shoes, this, that, and the other. But it's like you don't spend as much time putting something in the child, right? So it has to be a balance. But no, there's not one size fits all. But, my mom used to always say too, when you punish a child, say like, for example, you have a 3-year-old and you say, I need you to go sit down. You're sitting down in punishment for 5 minutes. The child, keeps getting up because you ain't paying attention. You walking around. She said it's going to cost you something too. You might need to sit in that corner with the child for 5 minutes to make sure that child does what you tell it to do. But nowadays, a lot of parents, it's just an inconvenience. Oh, if I put them on time out of punishment, that means I can't go nowhere. I can't do nothing. So, I'm just going to let it slide, right? When we was coming up too, you got stuff taken away from you. But have y'all ever seen what it looks like if you try to take some of these kids' phones away? It's like pouring water on a gizmo. They turn into gremlins. They just are besides themselves. And that should tell us too, that's an addiction. But so a lot of parents know their children are going to behave that way. Oh, just leave them alone. If they on the phone, I mean, they ain't going to be disturbing me, right? So it's going to cost you something too.
I raised girls and boys. I raised one and she's a renegade. Bought all the kids' cars at 16 years old. She was the first one, bought her a car. The agreement is you don't come in here after 12 o'clock. You don't come in here after 12 o'clock. And one day she came in, it was about 12:30. And I knew when she came in because I was up. I ain't argue. I ain't say nothing. I laid down. That morning she woke up and she was screaming, somebody stole my car. Ain't nobody stole your car. What happened in my car? Shit, I got up this morning and sold it. I told you don't come in here after 12 o'clock. I'm not finna fight with you over no phone. I pay the bill. I'm gonna cut that motherfucker off. I'm not finna argue with you. I'm not finna argue with you. And see, I believe in my heart, because I've mentored kids and I've dealt with families, that I agree with Benny. One size does not fit all. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Oprah and Phil Donahue, Jerry Springer, fucked you black people's heads up raising your children. They messed your heads up. You thought that stuff that was on Jerry Springer was funny because it was the little white kids doing it. But see, one size fits all. So now you got somebody who's a parenting expert that's going to tell you how to raise your kids. Well, here's the problem. You can't raise them black kids like you raised them white ones. I'm sorry, you can't. I don't believe it. You can't raise a kid in the hood like you're raising them in the suburbs. It doesn't work. And we're just, by nature, I think that African American people, we just require more discipline and more structure. We face more pitfalls on a daily basis. So it's easy to revert to the streets and to that lifestyle because of what you don't have, or the struggle, or whatever you want to call it. But if you're seeing this as a parent, and you know your child is gang related, you know your child came home with $700-800 and he left it this morning with lint in his pocket, and you ain't asking no questions, your ass should be held responsible.
I totally agree with you. So, I mean, yeah, you know, it's going to take parents to be present. You got to be, parenting is a job. It's not one of those things where you could just water it every once in a while. Like, kids aren't a plant, right? You water it every once in a while, walk away from it, and then you see it's dying. Then you know, you may want to put some more water on or something. No, that's a 24/7 job being a parent. Like, you never sleep. And I'm not just talking about physically, but mentally. You don't sleep on your children. But I just, you know, I just think we have a lot of parents nowadays that are lazy. They're just lazy. They just don't want to put in the work. And I always say this too. I've never heard so many mothers nowadays talking about, I need some me time. Now, I get the me time. I get it, right? You go off and have maybe some coffee or whatever. You're going to do shop by yourself. But these mamas nowadays, they want vacations overseas me time. It's like, well, what about your child? I just need to get away. It's like, we should have thought about that when you was making a child. But yeah, parents nowadays are just completely, not all, some are just lazy and just don't want to be bothered.
Well, Mina War Butterfly Adams, this is from LaDain. What if other family members start buying them things? What can you do? Well, if the family is straight mentally and understand how this rock, they ain't gonna buy them nothing. If you violate the terms of the agreement of the house, it's no way I could do something at my house and go to my uncle's house and think I'm gonna get away with it. You know, my uncle grabbed me around the throat one day. I mean, this man was 6'7". 6'7". He wasn't no little one. And he looked me in the eye and had me lifted up off the ground. And he said, I want you to know one thing. You disrespecting your mama, but she been my sister longer than she been your mama. Don't never do it again. Consistency throughout the family will stop that. Stop allowing or coming up with the excuses. And I agree with Mina that kids need to learn the value of hard work. If they want something, you ain't got to get out there and rob nobody for it. Go get you a job. Go get you. You think about it. Most of the kids, they get jobs, they keep the money anyway. It's not like they paying a bill. But the thing is they gotta have all this extra money. And trust me, I done seen y'all with the stacks with the rubber bands on them. They ain't number ones. 1,000 ones look like a whole bunch of money. They ain't no money. But if you grown enough to get out there and commit armed robbery, murder, then you should go do your time, or if they give you the death penalty, deal with it. And mama parent, mama bear, papa bear, if it was your child that did it, then you should bear some of the responsibility for what they did.
Yeah, and you know, I'm kind of weird when it comes to the death penalty. And I'm kind of weird when it comes to children as well. And I don't want to say weird. I guess I just have a different opinion about the death penalty for children and about life sentences for children, because I feel like children will maybe be different people when they're older. You know what I mean? So I do believe it's you know, when it comes to children and the life and death penalty, I think there should be some redemption, because we just never know, right? We don't know if they're going to turn out to be different people, because you know, you alluded to it earlier, when we were kids, like you said, you didn't want your kids to do some of the stuff you did, because now you understand, right? Like, and same here. I mean, I used to do stuff like get in the dryer and ride around when we were little with my sisters, right? I wouldn't want my daughter to do it. But now that I'm a 51-year-old woman, ain't no way in hell I'm jumping in no dryer. So the point that I'm making is, when people are kids, they are eventually going to have a different mindset. We hope. I don't know. Some of these kids are just, unredeemable. But I just kind of feel like locking them up for life and giving them the death penalty, I don't know. But I think they definitely should do some time. And how much, I don't know. But life, yeah, for a child, it's kind of, I don't know.
We're gonna have to make some examples out of a few of them. You're gonna have to lose a few to save the bulk. The way I used to fire people when I owned my company is I didn't fire you in private. If you violated some terms working for me, I cut your head off in front of the whole crew. I fired you in front of everybody. And that right there stopped a lot of foolishness from some that wanted to do the things that they saw that person do. So I think right now, during these midterms, especially in Harris County, there's going to be a shift in judges. We see the ramifications of judges letting people out on multiple bonds. You can get ready for it. That it's finna change. And I put up this red screen tonight for a reason, because a whole bunch of Democratic judges that's been letting your kids out of jail, they ain't gonna be there after November. And they are gonna throw the book at them. They're gonna throw the book at them. So you can either start having these discussions now, or you can get ready to go visit your kid behind that glass. Is that what you really want? You have the opportunity to get to your kids and to talk to them and have these discussions. Yeah, they're going to get sick and tired of you. Mine was like, man, you preaching every day. I'm preaching to save you. I'm preaching to save you. And you got to do that as a parent. Yeah, you're going to get on their nerves. I mean, if you're 14, I don't think you got no nerves. Do you know where your nerves at? You eat free, you sleep free. You ain't got no issues around here. But I'm going to keep preaching that sermon until I reach them. And then more importantly, a lot of y'all kids, that especially 18 and 19, we just watched a whole bunch of graduations. You know how many kids that got thrown out the house because they graduated high school? They ain't have nowhere to go. These kids on the streets trying to survive now. No, you should have left them at home. And the thing is, if you're going to be here, this weekend, I got to take the grandson up to Tyler, because it's simple. He just graduated. You either go in the military or you going to school. Which one you want to do? But you're not going to stay around here. You're not going to stay around here. Y'all are graduating y'all children to be door greeters at Walmart. Work the window at Wendy's. Is this the life you want for your child? And now they living around here and they seeing everybody having things and they not having it. Some kind of way they gonna get it. They gonna get it.
You know, one time my daughter, she was joking, but maybe she was serious. I don't know. She says to me, she says, I didn't ask to be here. You know, you put me on this earth to struggle. And we laughed about it. But then one day I was really thinking about it. I was like, damn. Yeah, we didn't ask to be here, right? And so I think we do have, as a parent, we do have the duty to make sure that we are instilling something in our children, and making them so that they're conducive to society, right? And to your point about kicking them out at 18, that is horrible. It's like you're kicking your child out at 18 and you didn't teach them anything. You didn't teach them anything. You didn't teach them how to survive, how to pay no bills, because, you know, you didn't allow them to be critical thinkers. You just didn't teach them anything. So now they're out there, like you said, they're trying to struggle to survive. They might be out there doing something strange for the change. They're doing a whole lot of other things, and you kicking them out the house. Why? Because you grown and, you know, I'm trying to go do my thing now. It's like, yeah, that's not how it works. And especially in our community, we got to get rid of that mindset of, well, they're 18, they grown. Yeah, chronologically, they're an adult, but they're not really an adult. They're really still a child, right? Especially if you didn't equip them with the necessary tools to get out there and make it happen. Now, I'll be honest with you. I moved out when I was 19, but things were easier back then. You know, apartments was a couple bucks or whatever. You know, I could afford to do that if I had a good job or whatever. But, you know, I wouldn't suggest anybody just put their child out the house. Now, I left along with my siblings. We all left around the same time. My older brother, 17, because it was just easier to leave, right? Because you stand up under your mama roof. Of course, you got rules that you have to adhere to. So it's like, yeah, okay, I'm grown. Let me go get my own spot. But we weren't put out of the house per se. So yeah, I think we should stop doing that.
No, I left when I was 18. And I'm 54 years old and I've never been back to my mama house. Because my father prepped me. He didn't put me. My daddy told my mama he could stay here forever. He don't have to go nowhere. And I'm looking at him like, man, I'm not finna stay here forever in that back room. No, I'm not gonna do that. But when I decided to leave, I knew that, okay, if I'm gonna be a man, then I gotta man up. So there were days where I didn't have nowhere to stay, but I would not go back to my mama's house. Not because I couldn't or because I was disrespectful. But if I'm going to be a man, I got to stand on my own too. So your kids are not men and women until they can financially take care of themselves. And if you buying your son drawers at 18 years old, he's not a man. If you paying your daughter cell bill and she got her little boyfriend steady coming over there, you tell me. First of all, you ain't finna bring him over here. He ain't finna be posted up in my eyes like this. Another thing you parents do, a lot of y'all don't even know your kids' friends. Our parents knew our friends. They knew who our friends' parents were. They met them. I mean, you couldn't go and ask Demetria K on a date without talking to her father. That's why your kids coming up missing. Because like you said, them tablets in these apps, and they meet these people on here. You don't know these people. The hell I want to meet somebody on the computer for? It is what it is. You have to become a better parent. But if not, then, you know, you're going to deal with that at the end of the day. You're going to deal with that. And it's nothing worse than losing your child to the prison system or having to bury your child. Because once that happens, then you're mentally going to be whooped. Because you're going to start thinking of all the things you could have did for it not to happen.
Absolutely. And I would just say, too, in closing, stop being afraid of your children. Stop being afraid to hurt your children's feelings. When I was raising my daughter, you know, she was about 1 or so. My mom's best friend told my daughter's father and I, y'all don't love y'all child. Y'all are in love with your child because she couldn't do no wrong. She cried, oh, give her what she wants. Oh. And when she said that to me, I said, damn. Now, mind you, I'm 22 years old, but I had the sense enough to inculcate wisdom when it was being imparted, right? And so I was like, damn, she right. Because when you're in love with your child, you don't want to hurt its feelings. You give it whatever it wants. You don't discipline it. You let it stay up all night long. I never for the life of me understand parents who allow their children to stay up until they just fall out wherever they fall out. Like, we had bad times. My daughter had bad times. But so when you love somebody, you do what is necessary, even though it hurts them and it hurts you, right? So it's necessary means bedtime is 8:30, little boy, and you need to go lay down. And they, where to go? Okay, will you stay up with me, you know, all night long? I saw this thing one time. It says, we knew when we was coming up, Gary, we old enough to remember this. When you heard the theme song, The MASH, come on, that meant it was time for you to take your ass to bed. But, you know, so you have to do things that you don't like and doesn't feel good to you or the child. I'm not talking about abusing the child, but like have some boundaries and expectations in order to make them a better person. But if you in love with your child, you spoil them rotten and they ain't no good to you, themselves, or nobody else.
Well, I'm going to close with this. Dr. Muhammad said something profound about 2 weeks ago. Everything you just said is designed to protect your child. It's designed to protect your child. And according to Dr. Muhammad, he say, when you love something, you protect it. When you don't love something, you don't protect it. If you don't love your children, you're not going to teach them right from wrong. If you don't love your children, you're going to accept all those failing grades coming into your household. If you don't love your children, you're going to ignore the fact that they're wearing all red or all blue every single day. If you don't love your children, you're going to do all those things. And in the end, you are going to suffer because your child is not the only person that goes to jail. You go with them. You go with them. And I don't know if you parents understand it, and I'm going to leave you with this here. When you go to jail, you're going on tour. What you mean you're going on tour? Because you're going to be right back in the band, just like Bobby was, Mr. Telephone Man, and they're going to be calling you every day because Bubba trying to knock the lining out of his ass in that penitentiary. Say, man, that's the reason I'm the best in the business. Every night, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, I want to thank my good friend, Demetra K, for popping in. Donovan has something to do. And every now and then, we like the Temptations. We get back together every blue moon. So until tomorrow, I'll holler at you.